everyone. It's great to see all of you here. Congratulations on surviving, making it to the last night. You don't look too bad. You don't, well, I mean, some of you better than others, I would say. Oh, we're going to turn that on, I guess. I could have done that, Nick, but thank you. It's been an interesting session for sure. We sure appreciate the media and the role that you play in helping to inform the citizens of Utah and distill the information on 45 days and over five. I don't know, how many bills are we at now? Does anybody have their counter?
Oh, I got it. Hold on.
What we got?
We're at 545.
545?
Yep.
Okay.
If you take bills from both the House and the Senate, I think it's 862.
That's total.
As far as we know.
What's the over/under? I mean, is anybody on
No, we're not
tonight's?
getting to 575.
You don't think we're getting to 575?
Nope.
Okay. The speaker promised me we would not set a record this year, but that was like a month ago, and I wonder if he's going to go back on that tonight. So I think I picked 561. And the Lieutenant Governor did like the Price is Right thing at 562, so we'll see how it goes. But in all seriousness, it's been I think I would say this has been a complicated legislative session. Several bills that were very complex, big issues that the state is facing, and yet I tell people to judge the session by what passes and what ends up in the final version of those bills. And I feel with a couple hours left that I can say it has been a successful session. We're very proud of the work that the legislature has put in. There's some very big issues that we care deeply about that we were able to get done. I've had a chance to talk to some of you, and I know I'll be doing some live shots with some others of you. But our number one priority this legislative session was housing attainability, and trying to make home ownership, get home ownership within reach of our kids and grandkids. Again, we have a very bold goal to stimulate and help create 35,000 starter homes for the citizens of Utah over the next 5 years. And this was successful beyond our greatest hopes, honestly. Getting the Treasurer's investment fund bill passed with $350 million available to help us now with low interest loans, short-term low interest loans for builders. As long as 60% of the projects are under $350,000, this is going to be a big deal. We appreciate Steve Waldrop and his leadership in helping us get that across. This is the largest housing attainability project and funding legislative package anywhere in the United States right now, and so we couldn't be more excited about that. I also want to thank the legislature for their work on homelessness. This past week, we were able to get through several hurdles which will allow us to begin implementation of our statewide, the first of its kind, strategic homeless initiative to significantly increase the number of shelter beds that are available. Allow us to implement a new homelessness court that will help us to hold people accountable and give them options for treatment and service, and making sure that we are ending the unsanctioned camping in our capital city and other cities as well. We believe that this will help transform downtown and other areas of the state that have really struggled, and again, while being incredibly generous and helping those who are in need. And so I'm grateful for the legislature. They were willing to step up there. And so those were our two biggest priorities. Obviously, there are lots of other things. Education funding came in at a number that we'd hoped for. We were able to get a 5% WPU again. Education funding will come in at over $800 million in this budget, several hundred million of new money, and so we're grateful that we're taking care of our students and teachers. And it's just been a really positive session. Obviously, there are some things that I don't like. I will save you the question. I'm not going to tell you of any bills I'm going to veto, but you're welcome to ask anyway. We have a lot of work to do. I have 20 days to review all 561 bills. We'll see what that exact number is, but we'll go through them thoroughly as we always do. I will inevitably end up signing some bills that I don't love, but that's part of the process as well. We worked really hard and really closely with the legislature. We have a wonderful relationship. To their credit, when there's something that we struggle with, don't like, and want to see change, they're more than willing to engage with us to help make that happen. So with that, I'm happy to answer any questions you might have.
I know you said you won't tell us which ones you are going to veto, but will you veto anything?
I don't know of that yet. I would say it's more likely than not, that there will be some vetoes. That's usually the case. I think last year was a little bit of an anomaly, but certainly that's a possibility. The Lieutenant Governor did give me a new tie. I don't have it on, but it was a gift tonight, and it's a veto tie. It says veto in lots of different places. So we'll show it off at another time. Other questions?
Were the Jazz on the verge of leaving downtown, and does the bill SB 272 save them and keep them downtown?
Yeah, I don't know that the Jazz were on the verge of leaving downtown, but I think it was a real possibility. I don't think that's a secret. I think that's been reported on, and I think if there was another place in another arena somewhere else, a new arena, that would have been really hard to do both of those. And to Ryan and Ashley Smith's credit, they have stepped up. I have to say that the narrative I think around these bills, both baseball and hockey, have been a little wrong. And again, no, this is no fault of anyone out there. But these projects are much bigger than those arenas and ballpark, the arena and ballpark. And I do think, Brian, that yes, this means the Jazz stay downtown forever. And what I say by this being so much more than that, this really is a transformational project. We're talking several city blocks, including what the LDS Church is planning to do. And I haven't seen those plans. I know there were some leaked plans that turned out not to be the real plans, but I do know, and they said yesterday, that they're very engaged and interested in what's happening here. So this is not just a generational opportunity. I believe this is a once in 100 years opportunity to truly transform downtown and make it one of the most iconic cities in the country over several blocks. So this is not just about an arena or the Delta Center. It's much, much, much larger than that. But this is one of those very complicated issues, not just because it's not a complicated bill, it's a fairly elegant bill. I think it's about 12 pages, but it's about the different groups that are involved in that. So you had to have the city, you had to have the county, because the convention center is the county, right? And so all of that coming together with Ryan and Ashley Smith and the Smith Entertainment Group, as well as the state and the role that the state plays in that, and then to do it with only Salt Lake City sales tax being an issue, and the legislature not issuing any new taxes on that site. That will ultimately be up to Salt Lake City if that's something that they decide to do and want to do. But I think it's truly remarkable and one of the biggest things we've ever done. And I think it will open the doors for some transformation down there that will make everybody pretty excited and happy, and certainly set us up well for 2034 when the Olympics come out.
Do you think that this is just the first of perhaps many pieces of legislation? One of the things that we've been hearing is that, okay, we'll put this out there, we'll fix it if it needs to be fixed.
Sure.
Do you expect that?
I do, yeah. Again, this is so complicated that it's kind of impossible to do in one shot and to negotiate over the course of 45 days. But what is in there is impressive. And I do think that the bones are there and the structure will work. We may have to come back and make some tweaks and some fixes, but to both this and baseball, we were able to do this and protect the taxpayers in Utah. And that's a narrative that I think changed over the course of time. And maybe if you read the first story on this, you think, what is the legislature doing, spending billions of dollars on these two arenas when there's no money for homelessness? And that's not the case. That's not what happened at all. In fact, unless you live in Salt Lake City or visit one of these sites, you will not pay for this at all. The vast majority of Utahns will not pay any taxes at all related to these two projects, which is really impressive. And those numbers, I think, aren't fair distributions. Those are numbers over 20 years or longer. And so when you bring them back to today's dollars, we're talking about much smaller numbers. And there was more education funding and more homelessness funding than anything that was allocated by the state towards those two projects. And look, we've done tax increment funding on these types of projects for years. So that's not something new. The idea that in a project area, when there's new growth in those areas, that the addition would then go to those projects, that's not new, and it's really not that controversial. I think too many Utahns think that the legislature just wrote $1 billion check and handed it to a couple billionaires, and that's not what happened.
But Governor, you have said in the past you don't support giving public money for stadiums.
Yeah, I said I don't support writing checks to billionaires, which is not what happened.
No, that's exactly, you're right, and that's not the point I was making. The point I was making is we didn't give a blank check, but we still had to use taxpayer dollars, raise taxes in order to fund this area. Can you just square those things? Why
Sure, yeah, again, absolutely. And that's why I think it's important to understand that this is bigger than an arena or a stadium. And so I've said all along that I support tax increment, and that's mostly what this is. Now there is a piece on the baseball with rental cars. And most Utahns don't rent rental cars in Utah, so this will mostly be paid from people outside. So I think I can square that pretty easily. Ultimately, Salt Lake will make the decision downtown, but again, all of that's not going to an arena. This is a much bigger project than that. And let me say this: even if neither of those buildings get built, okay? Let's assume that hockey doesn't come and baseball doesn't come. Now, I think they're both coming, which is transformational in and of itself. But let's assume that neither of them come. These projects both will be worth it, even if we don't have those. This is what we should be doing on the west side, which has been overlooked for far too long. We've used this type of investment all across the Wasatch Front, and yet never on the west side. Finally, the west side is going to get what downtown Salt Lake City has had for a millennium. I mean, forever, as long as we've been here. We haven't been here 1,000 years, but I'm being a little prolific here. So, but my point is that these are projects that we should be engaging anyway. I will tell you, the plan was after this session to sit down with Salt Lake City and Salt Lake County and look at how we could transform downtown Salt Lake City to get ready for 2034. We just did that. Well ahead of schedule. That was something we were supposed to start working on this summer. And this bill gives us the ability to do that. Now, ultimately, the taxpayers of Salt Lake City and the mayor of Salt Lake City and the city council will have to make that decision if it's worth doing this project, especially if it means keeping the Jazz here and a new hockey arena. But Salt Lake City, who just lost their minor league baseball team, the AAA baseball team, and was really struggling with that, to come out of this less than a year later and say, wow, we might have the NBA here forever, we might get NHL, and we might get Major League Baseball, and we get to transform downtown and actually make it a place where people can visit and walk and shop and enjoy their entertainment. That's a game changer, and I think the people of Salt Lake City will likely gladly support what they're given the opportunity to do. Please.
Speaking of athletics, can you talk a little bit about your perspective on the NIL bill?
Sure.
Affect college athletes and their maybe influence?
Yeah, so I met with the NCAA last week when I was in Washington, D.C. Charlie Baker, who is the head of the NCAA now, is a dear friend, former governor of Massachusetts. We weathered COVID together as governors, and he comes out and skis here all the time, so I've become really good friends with him. Look, I hate NIL. I think it's a terrible thing for college sports. There are lots of things happening in college sports that I don't agree with. But I don't get to make those decisions. And so since NIL is kind of the law of college sports now, we have to be able to participate in that. Our colleges and universities, the University of Utah, Utah State University, they have to be able to play in that same sandbox. And we're at a big competitive disadvantage if other states aren't required to release the terms of those contracts. And I think it's important that these contracts are mostly with minors or barely over 21. Many of them will be for young people under 21. And if you're choosing between two schools, and you can keep the terms of those contracts confidential, or have them written about in the media and be under that same type of scrutiny, you're going to choose a school that doesn't require you to do that. And so, as much as I would love to get rid of all of this, I do support the bill. I think it's the right thing to do, put us on a level playing field, and again, especially because it involves young people and minors, I think it's okay to not disclose the terms of those contracts. Any other questions?
How do you feel about armed guardians in schools?
Well, look, I'm very worried about school safety. I can tell you that I've had lots of conversations with Representative Wilcox, and we've been very fortunate here, Brian, that we haven't had a school shooting like many other states. We've implemented lots of new technologies, and we're doing more in the mental health space than ever before. We've got more counselors in schools than ever before. We have the Safe Utah app, the Safe UT app, which has been utilized where people can report a tip if somebody's brought a weapon to school. And I can tell you that we have intercepted weapons at the front door of schools. We have been able, because of the tips that have come, we've been able to stop young people and I believe save lives. And so we know we have to do more. Representative Wilcox has done more than anyone else in our state on this issue. He has traveled to schools. He's been to places where these terrible tragedies have happened. He's been to Uvalde and other places. He's worked with law enforcement officials all across the country who have experienced this firsthand, administrators and teachers, kids, families, people who were in the building, and came back tasked with helping us helping us devise the very best possible plan. And that's what he's done. And so I support it. I think there's a deterrent factor there that can be helpful. The ability to respond very quickly if the worst does happen and there is a tragedy like that. And we've got funding in the bill as well, maybe not as much as he was hoping for, but enough to get us moving in the right direction. And so I'm optimistic that we can make this better for our students and ultimately, again, hopefully never happens, but if it does, we'll be better prepared.
Governor, we have our first live shot in a couple of minutes.
Okay.
So just one last quick question.
If you don't have one, that's okay too.
What do you make of the move just earlier tonight where the Senate tried to swap a bill to ban pride flags in schools, essentially?
So, look, I'm grateful for the Senate. I think the Senate did the right thing. This isn't about the substance of the bill; it's about process. And if you remember last year, I wrote a first of its kind non-veto letter. It was a letter to the legislature, letting them know that I'm worried about process and that I had seen several bills where things like that had happened, and I think it's really important that we get the process right. And so this was a bill that had a process. There was a bill that had a process, and it failed. It didn't pass. And so in an effort to kind of circumvent the process, that they tried to bring that back. Now, regardless of what you think of the substance of the bill, I think there's some merit to parts of the bill, I believe strongly in process, and I think that was the argument that carried the day. From what I heard, I didn't get a chance to see it. I was working on something else at the time, but that senator stood up and said, "Hey, it's the last night of the session. This bill has already failed. We haven't had any time to have a public hearing, a committee hearing." And that's not the way we should do business. And so you win some and you lose some, and when you lose, you come back next year, And so I think that's a fair process, and I'm grateful that they saw that and were willing to follow the process. I hope this restores some faith in the legislature and in the process. Again, I always say, judge the legislature by the bills that pass and not by the ones that don't. I think too often people who maybe don't understand the process see a headline or read a story about a bill earlier and just assume that it's passed. I still have teachers that are mad about a bill 2 years ago that never passed that they think did. And I hear that all the time. And so this is one where I'm just grateful for that. And to the bill sponsors, I'd say, hey, come back next year and make the changes that you need to get your bill passed. And with that, we'll go ahead and do some live shots. So thanks, everyone. Good luck the rest of the night. I'm told that it is looking like a midnight ending. Hopefully I'm wrong. Last year they interrupted this at about 9:20, I think. And I would love to see that happen again, but I don't think we're going to get that lucky.